Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me. It's Sunday school lesson time. I want to welcome my friends from America and from Brazil to this story. We are going to keep talking about Israel going into the Promised Land. Remember the last time that we talked, Israel had crossed the Jordan River, that God had caused the waters to stop so Israel could cross on dry land, and they are camped out there in Canaan. Manna has stopped falling. They're now living off the land of Canaan. And they have Jericho right in front of them, a huge walled city, and they can't just go around it. They've got to do something about it, but they don't know how they're going to attack it. They don't know what they should do, what they can do. People of Jericho have all gone into the city. They've closed their gates. They've locked their gates. They're standing on the walls looking at Israel. Israel is standing out on the plain looking at Jericho. Hard to know what's going to happen next. Except that God has promised to give Canaan to Israel. So Joshua's in charge now, but he doesn't know what to do. So he goes out and he walks around and he looks at the walls and he thinks and he puzzles and he wonders and he ponders. And he meets a soldier with a very bright sword. And Joshua says to him, "Who are you? Are you on our side? Are you from Jericho? Are you my enemy? Who are you? What's going on?" And the soldier says, "I am the angel of the army of the Lord." And Joshua hits his face. He falls down. He knows he's in the presence of something much greater than him. It's probably the archangel Michael, who is the leader of the Lord's armies. Anyway, this angel tells Joshua God's plan for taking the city of Jericho. And if Joshua has questions or concerns, he certainly doesn't say anything to the angel. He just nods and smiles and says, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." He goes back to camp and he tells his commanders what the plan is. And if they have questions or concerns, they don't say anything. They just nod and smile and say, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." And they go and they tell the people what's going to happen. And the people, if they have questions and concerns, they still remember how God just brought them across the river on dry land, how God has protected them from their enemies. And the people smile and nod and say, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." So the day comes of the big offensive against Jericho. And so all the people of Israel line up. You got the priests in the front with their horns that they can blow. You got the Levites next carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And then the whole people of Israel lined up behind them. An enormous parade. And they start marching towards Jericho. And the people in Jericho, they're very afraid. Something's going to happen. It's going to be really, really, really scary. And just before they get to the walls, the people of Israel turn. And they just walk around the city. They go all the way around the city. There's not a lot of chitter-chatter. There's not a lot of talking. There's not a lot of noise of any kind. Just the thump of people's feet. Just the blowing of the horns. Israel walks all the way around Jericho. Goes back to camp. Has dinner, goes to bed. People in Jericho are thinking to themselves, "What in the world was that? That's the weirdest thing we've ever seen. What kind of attack was that?" Now, there was someone in Jericho who still knew that God was going to make this happen. Didn't quite know how, but knew it was going to happen. That's Rahab. Remember her? She was the one who shielded and protected the spies when they went into Jericho a couple stories ago. Remember how when she got them out of there, the spies told her, "Look, God's going to give us the city. You put a red cord in your window. You pack your house with your family and friends. We will not attack your house. We see the red cord in the window. We will not attack your house." Rahab saw Israel walking around. She didn't know what was going on, but she knew the time was close. She got her family and friends into her house, put a red cord in the window, and they watched with amazement. Second day, Israel gets up, line up again. Same batting order. We got the priests up front with their horns. We got the Levites with the Ark of the Covenant. We got all the people of Israel spread out behind them. They walk toward Jericho. Right before they get to the walls, they turn. They go around the city. They go back home. They eat dinner. They go to bed. People in Jericho are starting to wonder if these are crazy people. I mean, do you think you're going to hurt us walking around our city? That doesn't bother us at all. You walk around all you want. Enjoy the view of our magnificent walls. Third day, same thing. A parade around the city of Jericho. Now the people of Jericho are starting to laugh, right? They're making noise, they're calling names, they're pointing, they're hollering. Israel just walks around Jericho. Third day, fourth day, walks around Jericho. Fifth day, walks around Jericho. Sixth day, Israel lines up, walks around Jericho, comes back home, has dinner, goes to bed. By this time, the people of Jericho are feeling pretty good about themselves. Rahab and her family, maybe they're a little crabby, but they still believe that God is going to give Jericho into the hands of Israel. Seventh morning dawns. Israel is up early. All the people are in line early. They start marching toward Jericho. They march around Jericho. They march around Jericho again. And again. And again. And again, and again, and again. 7 times they march around Jericho. And when they get to the end of the 7th time, the priests all blow their horns, the people all shout, the walls of Jericho start to shake and to tremble, and they fall down flat. Joshua says to the soldiers, "Men, have at them. Remember, there's a house in there with a red cord in its windows. Leave those people alone. Protect those people. Second rule, if you find valuable stuff, don't keep it for yourself. None of it. Not a zip. Zzz. It all goes to the tabernacle. You don't keep any gold. You don't keep any silver. You don't keep any jewels. You don't keep any fine cloth." Everybody understood? Yes, sir. Yes, we understand. Then go get them. And Israel rushed into Jericho, burned the place. The only people who lived were Rahab and her family. And they got brought into Israel, and they made their home in Israel, and they learned to worship and trust in the one true God. And God incorporated them into his people. It's a pretty cool story, isn't it? It's a pretty wonderful story that people just trust God, and God makes things happen. That's a good reminder for all of us. We all think that we have to make things happen, that we have to live a certain way or believe a certain way, and that God's waiting for us to get it right. God's not waiting for us to get it right. God's going to take care of you. God has a plan for you. God's going to save you. And this is God's business. The same God that can knock down the walls of Jericho can do anything that needs doing to save you and to bring you into his family. God loves you like crazy. And I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. The conquest of Canaan is underway, and Israel is moving into her new home. See you next week. Bye-bye.